we're a sixth-generation family farm down in Janesville, Wisconsin. My family's been running around down there since 1848, and I've been very lucky, and I've had a lot of good role models and a lot of people in the community who've taught me a whole lot, and I've tried to hang on to as much as I can. For those that are familiar with Rock County, the eastern portion of it is some of the most fertile, productive soil that you can find. Unfortunately, we run more of the marginal, sandy, hilly stuff to sort of the south and the west. And so we've always been a little bit of an anomaly in the community. My dad has been running organic ground for 100 years, so he's had a lot of experience doing that, and we've kind of slowly but surely started transitioning our ground into value-added, into certified organic. Today we have 1,200 acres of certified organic ground, 3,200 of food-grade non-GMO, and we have another 600 in transition. And we do all of that without any on-farm storage. So we have to know where our buyer is at, preferably before we put the seed in the ground, but definitely before we take it out. So what we've done is tried to build a rotation, tried to build markets around our rotation that facilitate that. And I'm not going to say that on-farm storage isn't necessary, because I think that you all know it can be very, very necessary. It's just that for us, we haven't really found the right opportunity, or we haven't made the jump, because it's a big investment for what we would need. And so we've kind of finagled our way this long, and we've gotten away with it so far. And so I'm kind of going to just talk about what we grow, why we do it, maybe a little bit about how we found those markets, or what we look for when we're looking for a new or emerging market. And then if I can, I'll spend maybe 2 or 3 minutes just talking about our experience with hemp last year. We grew it for CBD production, and I think it's a perfect case study for why having a marketer's mindset is invaluable when you're approaching a new venture. So to start with, we have basically a modified version of a corn, bean, wheat rotation. We are taking, we'll start on a transition year. We'll start the first year out with corn. We'll usually put a cover crop of rye before or after that. We'll go in and do beans. When the beans come off, wheat, and then when the wheat comes off, or interseed clover, and start over. With the acreage we've had, growing soybeans is a big challenge, and so we found a market for some food-grade sunflowers. And when we started, we talked to a lot of agronomists about growing sunflowers in our area, and we were told that we were nuts. But we've done it for about 4 years now. And when we started, we were averaging about 1,500 pounds an acre, and through some good agronomics and just a better handle on what we're doing, some good facilities, this last year we pushed almost 3,000 pounds an acre. We have very light, sandy, irrigated soil, and so we found that those flowers really do well on that. And with all the rain we had last year, we were told it's a dry weather crop. It's a dry weather crop. Again, this is just my data point experience. Those flowers did not suffer from all the water we got, and I didn't see any mold, any white mold out there. So take it for what it's worth. But I think for us, we're always willing to look at an opportunity and not just take what we're told as fact. So sometimes, sometimes you succeed, and other times you fail. So with our rotation, obviously with the small grain year, we're also doing some value added there by finding seed or food grade markets. That can be really challenging when you don't have storage to hang on to it or dry it. So we need to make sure that we really know the specifications of what the buyers want. We need to make sure that they understand what we're providing or what we can offer. And then, we're trying to come up with a plan B. So what we'll typically do is, and this is for soybeans too, or for small grains, is we like to select varieties that are kind of right on the edge of food or feed grade. It seems like a lot of those varieties maybe don't have quite the yield drag that a pure food grade would have. But if you get the right weather, you get the right conditions, all of a sudden you've got a food grade premium that you can exploit. So we go in and we test early and often in our fields. We do a lot of sampling, we do a lot of grading, we do a lot of specifications, and we try to understand what we have, what we think we have, and then we go out and we aggressively market it. And there's no secret to that. It's just cold calls. I'll lose my voice around this time of the year, just calling, going around and asking people if they're buying, if they're looking for something, what we have in the rotation, where are areas for opportunity, how we can maybe facilitate to help a potential buyer. Anything that we can do to move our product down the supply chain. That's kind of how I think about it. So what creative ways can we come together with buyers? And so through doing that and doing it well, I believe we do it well, we've been able to establish some pretty critical partnerships. We have great relationships with growers and buyers and merchandisers. And we have some, right in our backyard. The DeLong Company is based in Rock County, and they've been a great ally. So that's a big advantage that we have. We also have Seneca Foods, which is a vegetable canning company located in Rock County, and they have certified organic vegetable contracts that we're able to do. So again, that corn, bean, wheat rotation can kind of get stretched out to a 6-year rotation when all of a sudden every 5 years we're adding a vegetable crop in there. It gets kind of this almost like a polyrhythm to it where we're constantly keeping Mother Nature guessing, constantly introducing different things into the soil, and I think that it's helped us tremendously in terms of not only just profitability, but being able to spread out those harvest windows, or being able to spread out the time we're in the field, especially with things like the sunflowers. Those come off a little early so we can get our wheat established maybe a little better. Anything we can do to kind of spread out those windows so that when the time comes, everything's not all ready at the same time. We do as much forward contracting as we can. Obviously, that is by the acre or by the bushel. We prefer to do it by the acre, but that's not always the case. So we always have a backup plan with what we're going to do. That typically means dumping it into the feed grade market, but we don't ever let a single grain go out of the farm onto the feed grade market until we're certain that we can't squeeze that last little bit of value out of it. And so that's what we're really focused on. And back to a little bit about just the cold calls. That's also where I get a lot of my price discovery. So I make a spreadsheet, and with the names of the buyers, the locations, the terms, the price, and I just call. And you have to just be a little bit of an extrovert, which is kind of against my personal sensibility, but I kind of have to put that hat on and really be lean into aggressively into marketing our crops, because if I don't have it sold by the time the combine goes in the field, like we're in trouble. So maybe it's that pressure I feel a little bit of what are we going to do with this if we can't find the buyer that has kind of put us in this mindset. So for for the feed and food grade, it's pretty simple. Test weight, moisture, FM, dockage, shrink, vomitoxin test or a DON test. falling numbers and protein. But then we've also found some success in some of the seed grade markets with the small grains. We're able to extract a little more value there. And I find that that's a really good place to land because you have to do an exceptional job. You have to be organized. You have to be a good producer. But I find that in this area, at least, the ability, the bar is not quite as high as the food grade in terms of some of the specifications. It really comes down to germination, contamination, and making sure that it passes the field inspection, which are all big challenges. But we feel that if you get your staff on board and you get everybody kind of rally the troops around and get everybody on board so that they know what's to be expected, especially when it comes to making sure that that combine is clean, that every truck is clean. Really getting an entire staff on board and in the mindset is probably our secret. That we've been able to find good employees, we've been able to retain them, and they don't come from an organic background. They're all the hardest working people I know, but they do not have, and they will probably be the first to admit it, they didn't come into it with an organic mindset. And so making sure that everybody knows about identity preservation is absolutely critical, and that's like our number one focus. One of the things that we've done in order to implement that is an entire little ticket system that's pretty rudimentary, but anytime a crop leaves the field onto a truck, we have our own internal ticket that then gets stapled to a scale ticket. We have in every machine we have a booklet that has a clean out log so that growers or so that the operators can reach in the glove box, grab whatever form they need, fill it out right when we're there, so that at the end of the year when we're trying to do our audits and our paper trail, we're not scratching our heads wondering what's going on or trying to backdate something, or it needs to be done right the first time, right when you're there. So that's really kind of, I guess, what we try to do is just do our absolute best and try to maintain as much quality as we can, and then inevitably on some of it admit to feed it and then send it to the feed market instead of storing it or trying to dry it down ourselves. So some of the things you're going to want to, if you are a grower who is maybe transitioning to organic, maybe don't assume that you have to have storage to get into this game. I think that we might be a good case study for how you can kind of move into that. We do have 6 semi-trailers, 1,000-bushel semi-trailers, and that's really our on-farm storage. We've made investments in the business on the trucking side, so almost no grain is FOB our farm. We deliver it all. So we're able to negotiate a delivery price and get it to wherever it needs to be. That entails CDLs, insurance, LLCs, trip permits, especially if you're crossing state lines. You need to make sure you get all of that stuff organized. But it's very doable, and if you have an operation that is switching to organic, it might be a nice option to consider, at least for the first chapter. So I guess what I'll do next is just kind of talk about my experience with the hemp, just because I want to kind of show that it was a challenging crop. I still don't know where the industry's going, but it's a perfect case study for how to approach a new venture. And so when we thought about it, I went out and I did a ton of price discovery. I called every processor in the country that I could find, every single one. And anyone that would take a phone call with me, I spoke to them for 30 minutes to a half an hour, half an hour to 45 minutes, maybe an hour. Just trying to learn about what motivated them and what they looked for. I knew that there was going to be a lot of product out there, and I knew that I needed to figure out how to differentiate my product from the rest. So I'm thinking that instantly, where do I make investments in my business in order to provide a product to the buyer that they're going to want? How can I be a step ahead of everybody else growing it? And what I found in those cold calls was that condition and extraction-ready biomass was what the buyers wanted. They didn't want whole plant. They didn't, a homogenized whole plant. They didn't want low potency, and they didn't want anything else in the plant. It's a soil remediation tool of the hemp crop, but that also means that anything that pulls up into those flowers, when you distill it and take it medicinally, you could be ingesting that as well. So we're kind of moving beyond seed, food grade, almost into medicinal grade, and that was a really cool experience. Very stressful and terrifying, but it was interesting, and all of the things we learned here definitely apply to that. So we went through the growing season. We created our enterprise budget. We knew our cost of production. We had our target for our potency, our pricing, and we aggressively marketed all summer long. I called, and the blank stares, I could just feel them coming through the phone, on so many phone calls, just because the market's real saturated, and you have to really have something special for anybody to take your phone call. Harvest was a really big challenge. We had a 10,000 square foot facility that we used, and we dried them all by hand from them. And then from our research at the beginning of the year, we figured that the one investment we really needed on the farm to do this right was a processing machine, something to buck that flour from the fiber, because we knew any fiber in the sample was just trouble. And that's just not something that I think you can assume or you can understand as a grower. It's only through talking to your buyer and understanding. So when we got through all of that, we ended up with a product that was about 7% CBD potency, a little bit lower than we wanted, but it was dry. It was beautiful. It looked like the nicest cattle feed you could ever hope for. And we had our organic certification, we had our COAs, we had our Fit for Commerce, and then we took it one step above, and we went out and did a full safety panel on our product so that we could safely demonstrate we had no pesticides, no mycotoxins, no microbials, no yeast, no heavy metals in our sample. And I was so proud. I was sweating bullets when that was out waiting for the results. But when it came back, it was clean, and it's really a testament to organic agriculture to see a full list of 72 pesticides and ND, non-detectable, ND, the whole thing, not even a shred of it. And that was really cool. It was a really rewarding experience, but still a lot of uncertainty. We still didn't quite have it sold when we got it out. We ended up building some relationships in the beginning of the year. Those fell through. We found some other backup ones. Those fell through. And we finally found someone, a processor, who our story, our pitch to trust us, they wanted security. They wanted security just like any other buyer. And we finally found a processor who was able to stop and listen to us and find it. And we did get our CBD contracted. And so that was a big thing. There's still hurdles to go. We're in control, but we still have the flower, but we have the avenue to move our product down the supply chain. And that's critical if you're going to get into the industry, is make sure that you are in a relationship or a partnership with people. And this isn't just for hemp, this is for anything. Because establish the partnerships with the people who can help move your product down the supply chain, understand what they want, understand the specifications, learn and ask questions, be inquisitive, and then just do your best to deliver, under promise and over deliver.
So I wasn't crazy about being the caboose at the end of 3 days of programming, so I'm only paid Willie $20 to pull that fire on there. So I'm Anders Gurda. I run the Farm Profit Program at Pipeline Foods. Just a quick brief a bit about Pipeline Foods. We are a buyer, a seller of organic non-GMO grains, oilseeds, and pulses. We're based in Minneapolis. We have facilities throughout the Midwest and Canada. We've been around for about 3 years now. So we still have been in the space for a while, but we understand that we're still based in the woods as far as a lot of the other guys that have been here for much longer. And so at Pipeline Foods, I run the Farm Profit Program. And that's a program that helps growers to see the organic opportunity, and then through education, resources, consultation, referrals, help them to access that opportunity. Maybe that's transition, maybe that's growing or optimizing an existing organic operation. So I have to talk more about that afterwards. And so the idea of kind of the setup on the table is going from farm scale, hearing about really kind of innovative and a little bit out of the box thinking as far as marketing crops. And then to talk with more of kind of a traditional buyer, right, here, and then to kind of go towards something a little bit more entrepreneurial and innovative that's coming on the scene. And so I'm sure that most of what I'll say is relatively remedial for some people in the audience, but what I've learned from talking to folks the last couple of days is there's a lot of people who are really kind of just organic curious or thinking about making that jump. And so hopefully some of what I can kind of lay out is helpful as a level set to figure out where kind of the organic marketplace is as far as it concerns players like us. So I'm going to talk about the differences between organic and conventional markets, and then the difference between buyers within the organic market, and then end by talking a little bit about kind of best practices when working with someone like us. So some of the most obvious differences is that there is no CPOT for organic. There is no Chicago Board of Trade, right? So there's not hedging in the same way. There's not basis contracts in the same way, right? So it's a different realm, which just really means that price discovery is opaque, right? Willie talked about that. So his price discovery is calling. It's cold calling, right? So that is how you discover what the prices are. And what Willie does is effectively what the USDA does, right? So they have their biweekly report that comes out, and that report is populated by calling us and other people in the room and seeing what we're paying, and then putting out a report that aggregates and then gives that spread and what that price is going to be. That's helpful as a level set, but also is out of date relatively quickly, right? It's biweekly, 2 weeks. That being said, the organic marketplace also doesn't move as fast as the conventional marketplace, right? And so we have a bid that goes out every Friday. Anyone can sign up for it. It's available. Let me know. I'll leave the name and email address and the location. You're going to get an email in your box that has our price, whether that's Bob Farm or delivered. So our price discovery is pretty easy, but as Willie said, it really behooves you to call as many people as possible and to get your own average, right? So that's kind of price discovery. The opportunities, marketing opportunities, are pretty unevenly distributed, right? So that's because of processing, whether that's a feed mill or a food mill or a crush plant, right? They're pretty unequally distributed around the country, as well as we talked about, because in the conventional market, obviously you have a spot market that's going to be 5, 10, 20 miles away, pretty easy to access. Because that's not the case in organic, also where you're going to be loading, where you're delivering food. That is also not evenly distributed. So there's historically a lot of diesel, a lot of logistics that pop up in the organic marketplace. Testing protocols really also touched on this, right? And so I think about organics as being increased compensation for increased management. It's not easy money. It takes a lot of work, as we've heard the last 3 days. And I think one of the ways that you get to actually recoup that investment is through things like making sure that what you're growing is what you say you're growing, and it falls into all of the specifications and grades that are laid out by a buyer, right? And so there's going to be FM, there's protein, there's all the normal testing, but then we also are going to be testing for GMO presence, right? We're also going to be testing for pesticide residue, potentially, depending on where we're bringing it, right? Depending on who the ultimate end user is. And so that's one way in which you are kind of getting that payment. It's a safety panel. It's seeing that what you have done is actually in line with what the production practices promise. Relationship marketing, that's true for conventional and organic, but there are, I think, more and kind of unique opportunities, whether that's brewers or distillers or sunflower oil folks in the area, right? So there's a lot of opportunities for relationship marketing that are maybe more relevant to organic. Supply inconsistency is a big difference, right? There has historically been a shortfall of domestically produced crops, which is the reason that we've been able to fill that vacuum or have filled that vacuum with imports. It's a whole other rabbit hole to go down, and my bus doesn't leave till 5:30, so I'm happy to drink beer and go down that rabbit hole with you if you want. But which is also to say that that inconsistency affects the market, right, to put it very simply. Storage availability, again, because you don't have all these places to be able to load your grain, that also means that storage is not something that is readily available. So a really easy recommendation to give to someone who's going into organic, not really in this case, but is to invest in storage, right? That gives you the optionality to figure out when you are going to ship, which adds value to your contract. And you look at our bid sheet, and every 3 months we have a different price, and that's usually going to be rising as you get later in the year. The challenge is, obviously, you're keeping that grain in condition, you're taking that risk on yourself, but that gives you the ability to have a little bit more optionality and flexibility as far as when you're shipping. It also gives the ability to IP your own production, whether that's based on quality, based on variety. It gives you the ability to kind of identity preserve what you're growing on your own ground. Logistics are different, right? So different companies are going to be handling different parts of logistics. And the last one is financing. So this isn't necessarily related to marketing directly, but there are more transition loan products that are available. We've worked with some lenders to be able to make kind of creative and favorable loan products available if there's financing needed to get through that transition. And oftentimes that financing or that loan product will be tied to a contract, tied to a market. That loan officer, they want to know that they're securitizing whatever they're giving you by seeing a price, by oftentimes seeing a long-term offtake agreement. And so we do have extended contracts for that purpose. You can use those contracts if you want to for any purpose, but oftentimes they're going to be tied to a loan. So that's kind of a proven market to access capital. Because we all know there are some lenders who don't speak organic and don't really have a lot of interest. And so oftentimes that market can help to kind of keep those conversations going. So those are some of the really kind of obvious and self-evident to some differences between the two marketplaces. Now we're talking about actual organic buyers. There are some differences here. There's brokers, there's handlers, there's merchants, right? And there's a lot of gray area in between what those are. So not to belabor the point between what separates them, it's not a value judgment. No one is better than the other. They're just different operations that are all potential markets, all potential places to sell what you have. The differences being, do they have owned assets? Are they taking ownership of the grain? Or is it more of a matchmaking? Is it increasing the visibility of the crop that you're growing? And is it also helping to matchmake with that buyer, right? So helping the buyer to see what's being grown and maybe more of a broker capacity. Logistics is going to be different between buyers. A company like ours, we have our own internal logistics arm, right? So we can either build that into the price, or we can work with you to figure out what will make sense for you, depending on if you have your own trucks or not. We do farm and delivered pricing. So people are going to have a different kind of level of engagement in figuring out the logistics. Some brokers may not touch that. That may be something that you'll be working out. So it's just something that's good to know ahead of time about what to expect, depending on who you're working with. Flexibility, I would say, is a big difference. So say you have a crop that is out of spec. It's high moisture, FM is higher than you want it to be, whatever your test results come back, right? So working with a company that takes ownership of grain and also has access to multiple markets gives you the flexibility to be able to have kind of a plan B. So you're shooting for food grade, didn't make it. Being able to sell that as feed grade, essentially to the same buyer, just gives you a little bit more optionality, to use that word again, a little bit more flexibility. And also larger companies that are buying more volume have the ability to blend. They have the ability to kind of to take in different qualities that may be not quite up to spec, as well as the ability to be able to help you get it into spec. We have dryers at a lot of our facilities, so we can actually help take in wet corn, and that opens a new market that previously you may not have had access to. Investment in this space, again, companies like ours are investing in brick and mortar facilities. So transloading facilities, elevators, crush plants. We also have corn milling, and we do some processing on our own as well. So we have invested, that has been kind of our main contribution to this space, is having those facilities be more equidistant throughout. So shipping is a little bit easier, and we have more the ability to be able to bring branches back, et cetera. And so that's something that we have really tried to put a lot of energy beyond. Volumes are different, right? So we generally don't work in LTL or less than truckload, but there are companies that will work in totes. If you have small amounts of things, that's going to be a big difference. And contracts is another distinction between, right? And so there's not kind of pro forma contracts are not going to be the same everywhere. And so we have, timing will be one. You can forward contracts. You can also spot contracts. Different buyers are buying different crops, very obviously. But as far as a contracting company like ours, we have bushel contracts. We have acre contracts, the bushel being a finite number that you held to, acre being an estimated yield. There's FGOD clauses, et cetera, in those contracts. It depends on what you're looking for, and we can help you work out what might be best for you. And then kind of there's I'm sure other contracts that other companies are able to offer. So just good to know ahead of time as to exactly what those are. And then a big difference, I think, between buyers is probably going to be what I would call other services. So the Farm Profit Program, right? Transition services, consulting, education, those kinds of things are offered not just by us, we're not the only company offering them, but there are other kind of value adds that companies are starting to think more about, to be more of value, more of service, rather than just being another price in the market. And I think that has been more of a shift, and I think we'll see that more moving forward. So again, not mind-blowing stuff, but just good to be able to kind of lay out some of those differences for people that are relatively new to the marketplace. As far as best practices working with a buyer like us, to be kind of a preferred supplier, someone that we enjoy working with, and so the relationship is reciprocal and positive. The first recommendation is always to over-communicate. As you're going through your season, something is changing. You feel like if you had a bushel contract, you're not going to be able to meet. If you had an acre contract, you feel like your estimate was off, communicate that. Let us know. We're not going to take you to court. We just want to know. We want to know what is happening so that we can make our best plan, right? If you have a kind of a spread of times when you can deliver, and you're going to be delivering 4 loads that morning, let us know that, right? Sounds very simple. We're oftentimes surprised and humbled by how little people communicate. And that really is just the lubrication of these relationships. So over-communicate, hyper-communicate. Next is paperwork and certification, right? So obviously we're going to need your organic certificate updated every year. So just making sure that you have that and you have all the food truck affidavits and things that we're going to need. Testing. You can send a sample to us and we will test it free of charge. So we'll let you know exactly what you have. And you can also help to figure out and let yourself know what discounts you may be looking at, if any. The quality that you're looking at. So we want to know and we want you to know. So it's completely transparent. We all know what is happening. Feel free also to go to a third party to get that tested as well. But we have testing at most of our facilities. So that's something that you can always do. And the last thing then related to testing is just to know what our specs are, to see our discount sheet. I can hand them to you. We have them available freely, so you know exactly what you need to hit. So when you get that, the test results, you know exactly where you stand. So with that, that's kind of a very, very brief overview of what we are, and tried to not talk too many specifics about pipeline specifically, but happy to talk about that.
Thanks, Sander. Good afternoon. My name is Russell Coon, co-founder and president of Organic Grain Exchange. So I grew up and live about 30 miles west of Peoria, Illinois. Kind of grew up in ag country, big ag, obviously, conventional stuff. So kind of have that background throughout my life. And then as we kind of grew up with some friends of mine, we all went off to college and came back and started thinking of ways that we could find our path in agriculture. We realized that there may be some potential and some gaps and some problems that need solutions in the organic side. And so that's where we decided to focus. You don't have any visuals, but feel free to get on your smartphones, check out the website, organicgrainexchange.com. But really, even these guys have hit on it. Willie, hits the cold calling hard. which isn't always easy for people, or people don't have the time to do it. And so we've developed, or we've kind of seen situations in our short time in this industry where there's buyers that need product and can't find it, and there's sellers that have product and can't sell it. But even furthermore, there's no central location. There's nowhere where people can just go and have confidence to find the product or to sell the product. So essentially, we created this website to create these grassroots opportunities for buyers and sellers to conveniently interact and make transparent decisions off transparent information. So how it all works is, as sellers, which most people in this room probably are, you get on our website under the sell page and you list some basic information: product, quantity, location, name, email, and we get it posted to our site, which then allows buyers to get on our site and browse and make offers on products. Sellers can post products for free, and buyers can make offers for free, unlimited. Ultimately, if we can get buyer and seller to at least have interest in the opportunity at hand, all information is funneled through me. So seller communicates what he has, what price. Buyer communicates what they're looking for at a price. And ultimately, we build it all down to product, quantity, price, payment terms, and shipping terms. If we can get both parties to agree on all of that, essentially the opportunity is approved. The seller ships on terms of the deal. The buyer pays the seller directly on terms of the deal. And then everyone's looking at me with a blank stare saying, what are you doing and how are you making your money? So on all approved contracts, we initiate a service fee to both parties. The service fee is communicated up front as part of the overall package. And we communicate that as 0 to 5%. To date, all grain sales have been between 0 and 3%. And again, this is invoiced to both parties. We don't see the advantage of hitting one side or the other. We feel there's value in both sides of this. And so again, we just try to create these opportunities, and they're all unique. So we have a seller who has the ability to store grain. He's also running trucks. And we had a buyer approach us, and all they wanted to do is pay money and have grain show up at their farm every 2 months. Well, we were able to work out a deal where this seller not only sold the grain, they also booked the truck. They were also able to charge a small storage fee to this buyer, and they were able to earn 3 income revenues off this one deal, and the buyer was happy with the arrangement, more than willing to pay the storage fee and all the costs associated. So again, we just try to create these grassroots opportunities from grower, producer, processor to the end user. Advantages to the sellers, again, it's free exposure. It takes a few minutes for you to sign your products up to our website. The whole world has access to review those for free. Throughout this event, people are talking about rotating crops and cover crops and rare crops. And they might not always have an established market, and what do you do with these? Well, you can at least give them to us and give us a chance to sell it for free. And again, if we never sell it, or if we contact you and we say we have a buyer interested in your product and you say it's gone, we just simply congratulate you, thank you, and move on and ask you to think of us for future deals. There is no fee, there's no cancellation fee. We're just trying to get information out and build relationships from grower to end user. A few more advantages for sellers that we're now, as we're growing, we now have a lot of 2020 harvest. So now we already have corn from farmers that are getting ready to plant. We can get potential opportunities, and conversations started ahead of the game. And, this kind of piggybacks with what Willie was saying, how, they're not a storage facility, and they need to find buyers before harvest. We can help facilitate that. We can help do those aspects for you if you don't have the time or don't have the confidence or don't have the ability to be effective in that aspect. And then, Anders mentioned, you got contracts set up for food grade, and you get the test results back, and they come up shy, and now you got feed grade, and you all of a sudden don't have a buyer. Again, those are the opportunities that we can help facilitate and bring broad range exposure to, again, for free. On the buyer side, it's not only making offers on products, but they can just come to us and say, hey, we're looking for this, or we need a specific grain, or we need a specific wheat within a specific protein. Again, we try to help facilitate those opportunities. We get a buyer that's looking for 50,000 bushel of corn. One seller with 5,000 bushel might not have that opportunity, or they might not be interested. If we can pool that buyer with a couple other buyers and raise that whole transaction, again, everybody's winning at a price and cost that are advantageous to all. And again, all these opportunities are reviewed and approved by both buyer and seller, operating on equal information, transparent information. Our team helps facilitate samples, test results. We can assist with logistics. We're just here to help support the growers find buyers, and buyers find their product. So again, there's established markets, and we just feel that even with the established markets, there's still opportunities in there and gaps that need filled. So we're just trying to be an alternative marketing method, a free method, and give us a chance. As we continue to grow, there's even potential to look at international markets. I don't think the issues that we have here in the United States are unique to us. There's a broad range of industry gaps that can be filled with the services of organic grain exchange. So again, I don't want to take up too much of your time. We're not trying to really do anything fancy or out of the box here. We're really just trying to bring information and people together in one central, easy-to-use location and facilitate grassroots opportunities.